I think when you look for Airbnb and Vrbo, it's definitely price. And so if you think about our core customer, let's say you're a traveling nurse that's making $100,000 a year, and you're going to travel 10 months out of the year. And the difference between 10 months at, for round numbers, $2,000 a month on your stipend and paying Airbnb a $200 every month traveler fee versus keeping that $200 and maybe paying $1,800 a month on Furnished Finder, adds up to be about 2 weeks of take-home pay. And so it's a really big deal.
Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Real Estate Pros podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Kessel. Today, I'm joined by someone I'm looking forward to chatting with, Jeff Hurst, who is the CEO of Furnished Finder. So excited to have you here today, Jeff.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. I think our guests are really going to take something away from how you're approaching the midterm rental space. So let's dive in. First off, for those who are not yet familiar with you and your work, can you share what your main focus is?
Yeah. And so individually, I'm Jeff Hurst. I've been the CEO of Furnished Finder for about 2 years. Before that, I was the president of Vrbo, or also known as VRBO. And then I was the chief operating officer at Expedia Group. And so I was in the short-term rental industry for 2010 to 2023. And I actually own 3 short-term rentals, one on a lake outside of Austin. I have a ranch, and then I have a beach house in South Padre. And so I've been a real estate investor for a long time and also spent a long time in short-term rentals. When I left Expedia, I met the founders of Furnished Finder, and they hired me to come in and be the CEO and bring in a new management team. And so they stayed on the board of directors. Furnished Finder's been around for over 10 years. We became big in COVID, serving traveling nurses and helping people manage the pandemic. And since then, we've been really focused on improving the technology and expanding the tenant groups so that more and more people can find, basically affordable housing to manage their careers and their lifestyles. And we're 2 years into that journey since I've joined. We now serve almost 250,000 landlords and have the most monthly furnished rentals in the US with over 310,000.
Awesome. And so when you say like midterm rentals, is there an approximate amount of time that most people are booking with you guys?
Yeah, so the primary part of the definition is what's the minimum, and so it's a minimum of a month. Some people define a month as 28 days or 30 days. We don't kind of get into the nitpicking in there, but it's a minimum of 1 month, and the reason for that is that it's usually when you start to establish lease dynamics, but also so many jurisdictions have short-term rental prohibitions, licensing, or regulations that we want to operate outside of that constraint that's affecting so many different jurisdictions. So it's at least a month. What we see on average is that the average stay is almost 100 days. And so people are staying over 3 months, and then a third of the people that are staying actually end up extending also. And so when you think about our use cases, a third of our tenants are traveling for work, and that could be skilled trade, like electricians building a data center, or it could be construction workers with the high rise. 25% is healthcare, and so they're typically traveling on 10 to 12-week contracts as nurses. And then 20% is relocating families, and that's where you see probably the most extensions because they may have had a plumbing leak or a roof catch on fire, or they're remodeling or building a new home, and so they could end up facing extensions quite a bit. And so those are the use cases. And, I think that the distinctive factor here is that when you're doing this, you're typically earning maybe 50% more than a long term lease, but you're turning it over 3 to 4 times a year in addition. And so it's a lot more extra yield for not that much extra work.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think since the pandemic, there's also been the rise of like digital nomads and people wanting to explore different places for, a certain amount of time that isn't always accessible with the lease or Airbnb prices.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, when you go beyond those top three use cases, academics, so grad students and professors are 10%, digital nomads is about 5%. What we find with digital nomads is they kind of identify themselves different ways. And so I
Yeah.
think they show up in more than one group. And the way that we're asking the question from a data perspective, one of the use cases that I think has been very interesting is that it's actually a much older tenant demographic than I expected, having come from Vrbo and competed with Airbnb. It's very frequently retirees or even grandparents who are getting a place for the first 4 months of their grandchild being born. They don't want to
Mm.
like be a burden in the spare bedroom or put someone out of their bedroom. And so they, rent a 1 bedroom duplex nearby. And then they have all the ability to be close and be of assistance, but also for the baby to come stay with them and maybe give the new parents some space.
Yeah, there's so many uses. That's awesome. And so on the investor side, what does that look like? Like, what criteria do they need in order to get their listing published?
Yeah, so publishing a listing feels very much like any other website. The only difference being that we're a subscription model, and so we're $199 a year. But in exchange for that, you get to collect money however you want. You get to set your own pricing terms, and we don't charge any commissions or booking fees. And so over the course of a year, it's a lot cheaper than paying 15% commission to Booking.com or 10 to 15% traveler fees to Airbnb. What I'd emphasize for investors is that it has more in common with long term than it does short term in terms of like the dynamics of the inventory. And I think that's really good for first time investors for a handful of reasons. One, 70% of our inventory is 2 bedroom or smaller. So it's a smaller footprint, which means it's typically more affordable. We're not a leisure business at all. We're around like commuter corridors, hospitals, and good schools. And so that's another place where like you can potentially get into a duplex or a quadplex, live in one of the units, rent out the other, and start to have some house hacking scale and some real advantages there. And then the last reason is because we're not leisure destinations, you can also self manage these much easier. And so you've got the opportunity to potentially buy one within 10 minutes of your primary residence and then do the management work yourself so you have sweat equity and aren't paying 10 to 15% in management fees to somebody else. So I think it's a really great, probably a better entry point than short-term rentals because of those dynamics, and it's typically a better cash on cash return. But you do sacrifice some of the vanity usage of like maybe you do want to take your kids to your lake house and have that be subsidized. And so it's different, but I think from a pure cash perspective, it's really exciting.
Yeah, amazing. And so The way that the platform works, is it primarily just for booking, or does it cover things like security and background checks and deposits and all those other things that the people that
Right.
upload their houses have to manage?
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency, it's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
Yeah, so for $200, we publish your listing for a year, and that gives you access to messaging, calendar, and then all of the different tools that are typically paid for by the tenant. And so we recommend you use our tenant screening product, which is powered by TransUnion. The tenant, I think it pays $39 for a screening, and they can use it multiple times or for multiple visits. We have a partnership with Rocket Lawyer, so you can create your own custom lease and have your own pet amendments or what's your extension agreement look like. And be sure you've got the right term for how much notice they're required to give you so you can minimize your vacancy. We're relaunching a product that's a deposit waiver. And so that should be live probably in early May. And that helps tenants have peace of mind without the obstacles of maybe having $1,000 or $2,000 deposit for your rental, by just paying a monthly waiver fee every month. And then it helps the landlords because they don't have to hassle the tenant for, if there is a stain on the carpet or whatever it may be, they can get that type of stuff cleaned as long as it meets the dynamics of the policy. And so those are the big ones that we offer. We do have a partnership with Baseline that we just launched, which helps people with bookkeeping and rent collection. And so we try to make it as seamless as possible. You just, upload your content, upload your photos, and then you use our help tutorials and video content to really be sure you're in a good position to manage that first tenant lead you get and help be sure you're protected and they have a good rental experience.
Awesome. And what would you say is like the biggest differentiator of Furnish Finder versus the others, Airbnb, VRBO, and
Yeah.
all those?
I think when you look for Airbnb and Vrbo, it's definitely price. And so if you think about our core customer, let's say you're a traveling nurse that's making $100,000 a year, and you're going to travel 10 months out of the year. And the difference between 10 months at, for round numbers, $2,000 a month on your stipend and paying Airbnb a $200 every month traveler fee versus keeping that $200 and maybe paying $1,800 a month on Furnished Finder, that adds up to be about 2 weeks of take-home pay. And so it's a really big deal. You're paying for a vacation. You're doing something meaningful to advance your life and your livelihood just by not booking on Airbnb. And so they're willing to do a little bit of extra work to avoid those service fees. And that's really the most distinctive thing. I think from a landlord perspective, what's distinctive is that we do publish a phone number and you can just talk to people. And frequently, because these are 90, 100, 120-day stays, a lot of times the tenant will want to come see the house or do a video walkthrough. And so there's a lot of things that just aren't supported by the direct booking model you see on Airbnb that we think are big benefits for landlords who want to have more control, direct communication, and a lower cost platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those little things can make a big difference in how safe and comfortable someone feels. Awesome. And so, as a landlord or an investor, what like are maybe some of the ways that they can maybe like expand their reach through this platform, if that makes sense? Like, are there certain tools they can to like get more visible or seen?
I think that we don't have anything that's like an additional pay for play type of feature. What we do encourage people to do when you're investing is really invest in what you know and get to know who's traveling to your neighborhood. And so, the tips I'd have on that topic are that, if you are near a hospital and think you're going to be catering to travel medical, be sure you've got good blackout shades. A lot of them work night shifts. Be sure you've thought through some of the unique dynamics for different use cases. It's not particularly one size fit all. And so if you've got a 2-bedroom, think about whether your core audience is going to be a traveling couple who wants a spare office. So the second bedroom has more of a desk dynamic, or whether it's a misplaced family, and that displaced family might need bunk beds in the second room because they may have two kids and they're trying to, manage a buy sell situation for their home or maybe their insurance displacement. We power a tool on our site called Market Insights. It's in the top left of our navigation bar. And if you type in any city in the US, it'll tell you what the traveler profiles are that are going there that can help inform, who you should be targeting and what that looks like. And, the other thing that's a little bit of a more of an old school hack is, drive by the closest extended stay America. See what types of logos are on the trucks and see who's staying there and talk to people to get a better feel for like who are the, traveling professional class that's in my neighborhood and how does my place stack up versus a more traditional option like an extended stay hotel.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
Yeah. And are there certain locations that you don't serve or that you see the majority of your investors coming from?
We are everywhere. And so with 300 and I think as of a few days ago, 14,000 properties across the US, we're everywhere. What we're known for is more suburban commuter corridor, hospital, university. And so like we're not going to be we're not great at Aspen. We're not great at 30A in Florida. We're not great at your top leisure destinations. And similarly, we tend to be a smaller footprint. We're more two bedroom and smaller in terms of where we are most successful. And so what I'd encourage people to do is really think about what is that local hotel and Airbnb dynamic and what do you have to add to it? If you were to put a duplex or something in there, do you feel like there's an interesting niche you can fill? Most of where we're seeing growth is often in these either smaller towns or it's in places that have really strict anti short-term rental laws. And those are increasingly common where it's just illegal to rent for less than 30 days or, there's a certain number of turnovers you can have a year or there's a minimum night of 7 days. Those are all places where potentially an investor was planning to be short-term and doesn't realize Furnished Finder's available to help them in a new regulatory construct.
Yeah, absolutely. And does Furnish Finder, is it able to, yeah, like mitigate those laws in all areas, or are there certain areas where it still
It's
kind of falls under the short-term rental?
It's very rare. There are
Uh-huh.
certainly homeowners associations who will have
Right.
restrictions against 30 days and more, or less than 365 days. At the state level, the only one I'm aware of is Hawaii.
Mm.
That I think there are islands in Hawaii that might be 90 days, but I'm pretty sure that's under review. But for the most part, it's been written as 28 days in most cities.
Awesome. And so if someone just wants to join as an investor landlord, they get to just sign up on your website and do the subscription, or is there
Exactly.
anything that they need to
Yeah, all you
do
need is
yeah.
well, I mean, you need to have a property that you can legally rent.
Right.
You need $200 for the annual subscription, and you need a ID so we can verify your identity and that you're associated and help establish trust. We're adding features to do more of that for tenants, and then we obviously have the TransUnion products and things like that to help keep the marketplace secure.
Awesome.
But my encouragement to people is one of the things you can do if you've got an unfurnished residence that you want to try, you can actually put the pictures up on our site unfurnished and tell the tenant that you'll furnish it when they sign the lease. And that can be really appealing to a tenant because then they kind of know like whether they're the desk person in the second bedroom or the bunk bed person, that they're going to have exactly what they're looking for. And it does de-risk a little bit the most common complaint I hear, which is like, well, I don't want to buy furniture if I don't know if it's going to pay back. And so
Mm.
you can get started that way if you don't already have a furnished accommodation.
Yeah, that's a good hack. Are there any other features that you're working on solving or things that you're looking to add and scale to next?
Yeah, for those of you who are uh, larger scale managers, and so potentially you're using a short-term software like Guesty or Hostaway or Hostfully, or maybe you're using one of the long-term software players like RentReady or TurboTenant. The big initiative we're working on now is how do we make it easier to connect to those platforms? And so we're working with each of them now. We don't have any definitive timeline for when different ones will be available. But that's probably the biggest thing we're working on now to make it easier to be supported on our side is to build API connectivity so you can just click and publish like you might be used to on other platforms.
Yeah, and is this something that you're maybe thinking to scale international or it's going to be just US based?
For the foreseeable future, it'll just be US based. The complexity of going abroad's pretty material. I think we would,
Right.
when we go abroad, we'll start with Canada and kind of prove the use case and get a better feel for it, and then we'll see where we are.
Awesome. And are there any sort of legal issues that you often see people run into when it comes to that landlord tenant thing that you guys
I don't
support
think
people
there's
with?
I don't think there's anything unique to being a monthly rental that you wouldn't see in a
Right.
long-term rental. It's it's overwhelmingly the exact same process. If anything, I think maybe because there's tighter turns and it's typically someone's basically, you know, it's where they're sleeping for their job. I think you're a little less likely to have problem evictions than you might be in long term because people's circumstances don't change as much in 3 months as they might in 3 years. But in general, I think if you're comfortable doing long-term renting, it's the same process. If you've been doing short-term renting, the big difference is that you're not just relying on Airbnb's booking process and their guarantees. You're doing a little bit more of the legwork on your own, but in exchange for that, you're also getting more control and no commission.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Thank you for sharing all of that.
My pleasure. Anything else you'd like to cover?
That feels complete, but before we begin to wrap up here, if someone wants to reach out, connect, and learn more, where can people find you, reach you, and connect?
Yeah. So if you're individual landlord just trying to figure out how to get started, I'd suggest you join. We have a Facebook group for Furnished Finder landlords. That's a great place to just meet people, network, get more information. Definitely encourage people to sign up on our site, even if you're not yet ready to purchase a listing, you can download our AirDNA report that helps you understand the dynamics of the industry. We've got a ton of how-to guides and videos. And then I'd encourage people to also check in on our podcast, which is called Landlord Diaries and hosted by two midterm rental professionals, each of whom have about a dozen homes and help talk people through it. We maintain phone support 7 days a week. And so you can reach us on the phone number on our website. And we also have a chatbot and dedicated team for customer service. And so, unlike some of the other platforms, we're here and excited to talk and look forward to hearing from everybody and helping you grow your investment portfolio.
Perfect, Jeff. Appreciate your time and your story. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. And for the listeners that are tuning into our show, if you got value, make sure you've subscribed. We have more conversations with operators like Jeff who are building real businesses, and we will see you on our next episode.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.